you, sir. Thank you so much for the introduction. And firstly, I'd like to thank Dave for inviting me and especially Cheryl ma'am for giving me this opportunity. So, I'll be discussing among all the other topics, I'll be discussing another important topic that is insulin injection techniques and storage. Okay, so while insulin injection techniques may seem simple and straightforward, especially when you're explaining to the patient, it is very simple to understand on paper. So when it comes to practical and day-to-day administration, we often come across different errors while injecting insulin. Some may be known while some may be unknown without even the patient realizing. So, which is why the important role of a diabetes educator comes into play over here. They help bridge the gap between the doctor and the patient communication. Also, they explain in detail, they help bridge the gap between practical knowledge from theoretical knowledge and the practical knowledge from day-to-day administration. Okay, so we'll be discussing a few case scenarios where there have been faulty insulin injection techniques. So we are more aware of about different scenarios or different errors that can happen in day-to-day administration of insulin. Okay, so the first scenario is a 40-year-old man who is living alone and he developed severe hypoglycemia and was unconscious. Okay, he was found by his neighbor lying on the floor. Okay, so after this, once he was taken to the hospital and then corrected, he visited the diabetes educator and he was asked to carry all his insulin supplies. And upon that, when we checked all his insulin supplies, we actually noticed that he was using a 40 IU syringe with 100 units insulin vial. So he almost took 2.5 times more insulin than his regular dose. Okay, so this is very important, educating the patient on, the correct insulin strength needle as well as the insulin vial to be used. Okay, the next scenario is a 12-year-old thin girl who was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes and she was consistently having hypoglycemia. So initially we tried to titrate her insulin dosage. Initially, even for a period of 2-3 days, we thought of stopping the insulin, thinking it could be the honeymoon phase as well. But when we actually asked her to demonstrate how she was taking insulin, she was not using the skin fold. She was not doing the skin fold before injecting insulin. Also, she was using a 6 syringe and she was injecting without skin fold. So her insulin, instead of going into the subcutaneous tissue, was going into the muscle tissue, which was increasing the rapid absorption of insulin. So this was another faulty insulin injection technique scenario. The third scenario is a 25-year-old female with type 1 diabetes. Now, she was doing everything. She was doing carb counting. She was eating healthy. She was not having outside food. She was also physically active. Yet, her glucose levels were not coming under control. Okay, so when we inspected, we found that she had lipohypertrophy. So, the insulin was not getting absorbed properly. So, then we advised her to not to use that particular site for till the time the lipohypertrophy completely heals, and then for the time being used other sites of insulin injection, and she was accordingly educated on. Now, this is another example of a 35-year-old executive who was traveling by air. Now, this person is on the insulin pump. He develops hypoglycemia while on the plane and notices air bubbles in the pump. So what happens is when the plane rises, there is reduction in the ambient pressure that leads to formation of air bubbles in the pump. So these air bubbles in the pump are replaced with insulin. So this increases slightly the insulin release from the pump, which is where there are higher chances of having hypoglycemia after departure. Okay, so basically what the person needs to do is prime the pump if they notice air bubbles. Okay, after takeoff, and then frequently monitor his pump cannula as well as his blood glucose levels to avoid any further hypoglycemia from happening. So from these small scenarios, we could notice that every small detail and information can have significant impact on blood glucose levels, which is why here comes the important role of a diabetes educator. So appropriate storage of insulin, that is storing insulin in a cool, dark place that is below 30 degrees temperature, protecting from extremes of temperature like direct sunlight, kitchen or closed cars, top of the refrigerator, close to the television. Refrigerating insulin pens and vials which are not in use, and do not put it in the freezer. Okay, and pens should never be stored with the needles on. Okay, now in India, not everyone may have an access to refrigerator. So this was an insulin cooler which was developed by Udan, wherein they use two earthen pots, and the outer earthen pot is filled with sand. So the sand is kept moist by watering every few hours. Okay, which maintains the temperature of the inner earthen pot and helps to store the insulin without affecting its effectiveness. Okay. Also, appropriate storage while traveling. So if the person is traveling by air, carrying insulin in a cabin bag and not in the check-in luggage is important. If the person is traveling by train, bus or car, then carrying insulin in insulin cool pouches to protect the insulin from light, heat and cold temperatures. Also, vigorous shaking of insulin should be avoided. Gently rolling the insulin, the vial or the pen before injecting is something that we advise. As per the correct first scenario that we understand, using the correct syringe with the correct vial. So always using a 40 IU syringe with a 40 unit vial and a 100 IU syringe with a U100 vial. Priming the pen before injecting, discarding the needle after one use, and do not leave the needle on the pen. Okay, now this is very important. A lot of the patients do this. Do not fill insulin from the vial into the pen cartridge. Now, there are various reasons why a person should not do this. Firstly, the risk of contamination. Okay, also handling your insulin. So usually your pen cartridges are manufactured with the pen. So there are certain mechanics which are involved in the pen cartridge and the pen. Okay, so the insulin is designed or stored in a particular way. There is a pressure difference also between a pen cartridge as well as insulin vial. Okay, so if you inject insulin from a vial into the pen cartridge, it can affect the efficiency of your insulin, which can lead to inaccurate dosing as well as unpredictable blood glucose levels. Also, it increases the risk of air bubble formation, which is not desirable. So these are the main reasons why it is not advised to fill your insulin from a vial into a pen cartridge. The correct choice of needle, that is 4 mm pen needles and 6 mm syringe needles, are recommended for all adults, children and adolescents. And usually the 4 mm pen needles do not require a skin fold. Okay, and for children who are less than 6 years of age and are very thin or maybe very thin adults, instead of injecting at a 90-degree angle, they may inject, because they are very thin and lean, they can inject perpendicularly, that is at a 45-degree angle, into raised skin folds to prevent the needle from going into the muscle mass. And also there is no reason to recommend needles longer than 4 to 6 mm in either children or adults. Now, another important aspect is injection sites. So usually the four main sites of insulin injection is the abdomen, arm, thighs, and buttocks. The site of choice for insulin injection is abdomen because it has the highest rate of absorption. In terms of rates of absorption, abdomen is followed by the arms, then the thighs, and last is the buttocks. The rotation of insulin injection sites. So if the person is using abdomen, we usually advise them that you divide your abdomen into 4 quadrants, as you can see in the picture, and you use one quadrant at once, like first quadrant, then you go on to the second and third and fourth. Similarly, you can divide your thighs and buttock regions also. One important thing that we always tell our patients is to keep a 1 finger gap or 1 centimeter gap between 2 injections. Okay, so that is, to prevent lipohypertrophy and prevent injecting on the same at the same site. So adverse events with faulty insulin injection techniques, firstly is pain. If you repeatedly inject on the same site, okay, you'll have more pain. Lipohypertrophy. Okay, so lipohypertrophy is basically a fat deposition that happens if you keep injecting on the same site. And the only treatment for that is you avoid using the site till the time it completely heals and you use other sites of insulin injection. Okay. Now, small mistakes that can have big consequences. Firstly, is not checking the expiry date of insulin. As soon as you open your insulin or you start a new vial, we usually advise that you check the expiry date. Also, you note the date on which you're starting or beginning the use of a particular vial or insulin pen. Okay, usually after the insulin, once you open it, it has to be used within the next 3 to 4 weeks. Injecting cold insulin, reusing the same needle. Now, as we can see in the picture, at the first use, after the first use, the tip of the needle is slightly bent, and after 6 uses, it becomes more bent. Now, this needle is structurally very weak. Okay, so if you repeatedly use the same needle, there are a lot of consequences that can happen. Firstly, it increases the risk of bleeding and bruising. Secondly, because this needle, the bent needle, is structurally weak, it can get stuck into your skin, which is a medical emergency. Okay, also it increases the risk of infection if you're repeating, because your skin barrier, there may be some, bacteria or some infection that can happen if you repeatedly use the same needle. Okay, releasing the skin fold before removing the needle. Okay, ideally, once you inject your insulin, you're asked to count 0 to 10 during administration. If you're not counting, or if you just count to 0 to 5, sometimes in the all the dose, for example, if you're taking 10 units of insulin, may not be completely delivered. Okay, so that will lead to inaccurate insulin intake, and your blood glucose levels can raise high. Also, releasing skin fold before removing the needle. Okay, so ideally you need to remove your needle first and then release the skin fold. What can happen is your needle, you may hurt yourself if you release the skin fold before, removing the needle. Okay, so while we've discussed about different insulin injection techniques, there is also another step forward that we all should, educate our patients, is awareness on appropriate sharp disposal. So environment friendly and safe disposal of insulin sharps is very important. Your diabetes educator plays a very important role in educating the patients about correct disposal methods. So there was a study in New Delhi which found that 84% of people with diabetes were discarding the sharps directly into their household bins. Okay, so all the people with diabetes are advised to collect all the needles and syringes in a puncture-proof box or a safety box, or a box with a strong cardboard, basically just to keep the sharp safe. Label the box as biohazard and hand it over to a nearby healthcare facility. So diabetes educators need to properly educate all the individuals with diabetes about this safe disposal of sharps in people with diabetes. Okay, so the key messages is poor injection technique is one of the important and the modifiable reasons for inadequate glycemic control. Improper disposal of sharps and the needle reuse is the major concern that we are facing. Hence, following recommended and proper insulin injection techniques, as a diabetes educator, observing and identifying what common errors the patient would be making is an important part of insulin therapy. Efforts should be made so that the patient has, basic information about how to properly store the insulin, what different injection sites the person can use to avoid lipohypertrophy, and the correct method of injection. Thank you.